Hi everybody, Daman Mehta here, and thank you for another journey as I go through my favorites list of fanfiction.net. Uh, I'm just getting tired of saying the same thing over and over. I want to try just saying something else. I don't know. We'll see. That was not a good take, but whatever. Going with it. Let's do this. We got a bunch of more stories, and links are in the description as always. And let's see if my taste as a child was any. I say child, this is from at least 2011, so I'm at least 20 years old. Alright, let's see how good it was back then. Alright, first one is Harry Lokison, the Trickster's Heir by DGLS Princess 105. And this is Harry Potter story crossed over with the Thor movie universe, but not really. It's more just a Marvel crossover. I guess not the Thor movie universe, just Thor in general. Anyway, basically, Harry is actually Loki's kid, and Loki finds out after Harry has like an incident when he's a little kid, and he drags him back to Asgard. Okay, this story is another one that just of the many stories that have been on my list that just does not get anywhere past its setup. Even though it's longer than many novels, many novels, it still only sets up Harry as a superpower Asgardian guy that everybody in Marvel wants a piece of. No actual action takes place, and the rest of the story after the inciting incident is a bunch of cute scenes where Harry gets to know his new family. While the scenes are adorable, there's not really any story that happens here before the author stops writing, and if you want cuteness and fluff, there's better stories out there. So that just leaves this as nothing really worth spending your time on, so you can skip this without worry, and it's going to fall off my list. Next is What Should Have Happened in Avatar The Last Airbender by daveshan. And this is the author retelling the events of Avatar The Last Airbender, the show, while making all of the characters obnoxiously point out all the plot holes and the mismatched fights that happen throughout the series. Like, I get it, it's meant to be a funny parody, but I just found the writing style to be obnoxious and annoying as hell, as like every line is written to be as condescending as possible to highlight how obvious the show's problems were. Like, it's like just how, like, in the first scene where, the kid, like, the Zuko, when Zuko attacks Aang at the South Pole, like, the first time, and it's like, yeah, like, and it's like, you beat me. It's like, yeah, I'm a master in the Avatar. Duh. Like, why did you think would happen? Like, well, and that, I guess that's fine for one scene, but when everybody talks like that all the goddamn time, it is very annoying, and I just don't want to constantly get barraged by that kind of tone. You know, sure, like I'll agree with a bunch of the points that he makes, and the there, but it's just not a fun read. It just makes it unbearable. If you want to see someone go through the series episode by episode and bitch about it, and you may be able to tolerate the tone. I just could not stand it, and it's not going to stay on my list. Alright, number 3 is Maid of Honour by S. Kellis 01. And this is a Familiar of Zero crossover. Not a crossover, so it's a Familiar Zero fic that starts as most do at the summoning ceremony, and instead of summoning Saito, Louise summons Siesta as her familiar. Actually, it starts a little bit before the summoning ceremony, so we get a little bit more of a reason why Louise would even know who Siesta is as a person, because the love potion incident occurs before the summoning ceremony here, and Louise still gets dosed, but ends up after pining after siesta, which causes a couple shifts in the hierarchy, and actually leads to Siesta becoming Louise's private maid before the summoning ceremony. Um, the main relationship now between Louise and her familiar becomes very different because it already starts from a part of, they already know each other, and Louise feels guilty because of all the stuff that happened to Siesta in the first place. So there's none of that playful abuse is there because she's already feels like she's in a like semi lower state emotionally in the relationship, and so that leads to a very different dynamic, which made me very happy because like I've said before, I hate that whole playful abuse notion. That's bullshit, and I hate that trope. The relationship between the two girls, does go. It is a girl love fic, but it doesn't really get that far. They're still in the longing glances relationship phase of the relationship before the fic ends, and the romance doesn't really get time to blossom. It does grow, but it's not blossomed. Other changes are present and provide a nice change of pace from canon, but none of them feel like full arcs are finished. So it leaves the reader feeling a bit unfulfilled. Like, it's not bad, but it's nothing substantial. It's the similar thing of, like, basically opening up a pack of chips and eating half of them. So, like, you like the taste a little, but it's not really filling, and you're not going to leave glad. You're going to leave just wanting more, like wishing you had the rest of that bag. You know, that's not enough for me, and it's not going to stay on my list. All right, next story is The Warren by Zelen, and this is a Harry Potter author dump fic, where author just has a bunch of one shots or half baked ideas and puts them all together into this plot bunny ranch. This is based on all of them are basically Harry Hermione pairing fics or ideas, and lots of variety in like when the scenes take place, how the stories progress, with many shifts in tone between serious and like super lighthearted. I love this pairing. I feel like that should have been the actual pairing in canon. So I found this to be really enjoyable, and the one shots I feel are not well written, varied enough, and interesting that I would love to come back to this again, and it's gonna stay on my list. All right, next is A Twilight and Trixie Story by Andrew Joshua Talon, and this is My Little Pony fanfic from the starting with the 2011 series. I don't know if this is that's considered Gen 4, Gen 5. I can never remember. But this is a story that takes place after they meet that first time, and Trixie calls up the Ursa and stuff, and it's Trixie trying to get a bit closer to Twilight after, and like make amends for that stuff. It's short, funny, and like funny in the sense of like, oh wow, these cute little characters are talking about that kind of stuff sense. And I had more than a few laughs reading it. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't mind seeing this again. Simple, fun. It's gonna stay on my list. Okay, we got two more. This next one is The Battle Never Ends by Kenchi618. And this is Naruto crossover with Metal Gear, and starts with Naruto and Sasuke's fight at the Valley of the End when he's defecting. When they clash, the big thing, wormhole appears, and Naruto ends up getting sent to the Metal Gear universe, where he's found by Master Miller in Alaska 6 years before the events of Metal Gear Solid. This is a long story, over 300,000 words, and that length plus the fact that it's one of the only other Naruto MGS crossovers I've read so far on this list was pretty bad, and it soured me on the story at first and made me not want to give this a chance, and actually maybe put it off for a couple days before I actually got into it. And it also felt a little slow in the beginning because, there's 6 years before anything you really recognize starts happening, and I felt like I wasn't getting into it at that point. But again, I was already soured on the idea beforehand. But then Metal Gear Solid started happening, and the Shadow Moses stuff starts happening, and I started enjoying the story again once I got into the rhythm. And then once I started feeling it, I took a small look back to the earlier stuff and found myself liking it a bit more after I reevaluated this stuff. There's a lot of time, like I said, there's 6 years before Metal Gear Solid 1 starts, and so there's a lot of stuff happening that builds up Naruto's history in this world as we see him go and like get training and take missions in other countries, even though he's a fucking teenager. Um, and that stuff keeps it from just being a plain rehash of the games. The actual game sections are also different enough, as unless the characters are directly talking about Naruto or one of the changes of the plot are made, the author follows Naruto during the events, so we're seeing all the actions from a completely new point of view. And so, it's just at least constant difference, not just, okay, we're just going to do a rehash of this scene exactly like it was in the game. Like, no, unless it's relevant or direct, or showing a difference, it's cut, which cuts out a lot of the fat and keeps everything feeling fresh. I ended up enjoying this a lot, even though it only goes through 1 and 2, Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2. It doesn't get to 4, which I think is the only one after in the timeline wise. But there also are a bunch of missions in between, even in between 1 and 2, that add a bunch of different stuff that I found really enjoyable. And I think if you like MGS, you will like this story. Hell, the author even adds their own monologues about the evils of war, and like, though none of them are as amazingly crazy as Kojima's stuff, they are still nice and fit the tone. So like, I think if you like Metal Gear Solid at all, you will enjoy this fic, and it's gonna stay on my list. Alright, and finally, the last one for this video is My Little Test Subject by Klutzy Bear. And this is a My Little Pony crossover with Portal. And, it's simple enough. Pinkie Pie somehow ends up at Aperture, and GLaDOS decides to use her in her experiments. It's really short. Pinkie's craziness clashes with GLaDOS's rationality and murderous attitude in a really fun way. And this short story drives her even crazier than Chell ever did. And, simple, funny, and if you want a quick dose of hilarity, give it a look. I enjoyed it. It's going to stay on my list. And there we have it. A couple more stories for you guys to look at. Links as always are in the description, as well as a link to my fanfiction.net profile, my forum where I post forum thread where I post all this as well. So if you just want to read this and read from the beginning, as well as a playlist where I've done this for over 2 years, so all the videos are there. It hasn't been over 2 years. But it's getting there. And I think there's still 2 more years worth of stories. Well, there's over a decade worth of stories, but even at a story a day, I got like 700 more stories to go. So thank you all so much for watching. Please subscribe if you want to get notified when I post this next update. And thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.